Hello everyone, my name is John Bussart. I'm an HPE Solution Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions from HPE. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then present to you what it means within a management interface. Today we're going to explore the StoreVirtual 3200 Management Console, which is a new, easy-to-use, web-based graphical user interface that's found on the new StoreVirtual systems. So what I plan to do is give you a quick tour of the interface itself, then show you some common administrative tasks such as creating volumes, snapshots, and exporting these volumes to hosts. So with that being said, let's explore this management interface. All right, so we're at the default login page here, so let's log in. So we'll get our overall storage capacity, some information on the disks, whether or not there are any updates that are available, as well as active alarms. Right. Up here, we'll always see active alarms as well as warnings show up. Here we can see recent activity, as well as my login information. Up here is the main menu. You can see that we're at the dashboard right now. Everything on here is clickable. So for example, if I click on this ring, it'll bring me into the active alarms. And if I select up here, you can see I'm underneath that context. Next on the menu is events. So these are events that happen on the storage system. Next will be tasks. So these are tasks that are running or have happened recently. Next is sites. So if I'm setting up a site-to-site replication strategy. Next we'll go on the other side of the menu and we'll look at settings. So these are some base settings within a storage system such as email notifications, system time, DNS, SNMP, as well as where I'm going to pull my updates for this system. If I go back to the dashboard, you'll see I don't have any available updates, but if I click on this, again, it'll bring me to a context where I can see the available updates, and if I look on the main menu, you'll see software updates. If there were any updates, what I do is go under action, and I would do install, and I would do an orderly install of these updates in order to maintain availability in the environment. So it would do the update on the first controller. Once that completed, and it would bring that back online, and it would do the update on the secondary controller, for example. Then on the bottom here is support information. All right, so this system, if there's any problems, it will contact HP directly, right, with the information that you provide. There's also a remote support mode. Next, we'll look at users. These are the users that can currently log into this environment, and we can add them to a group for easy administration. And we can look down here for user groups. Next, we'll look at the disks that are installed in this system. You can see I have a bunch of spinning disks here, and if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, I also have some SSD drives. As a matter of fact, if I select one of these SSD drives, we can see its wear gauge. Moving up the disk, we can look at enclosures. So enclosures are what holds the drives. So the system that I have has 2 enclosures plus space to hold a great many drives. I have the ability to add an extra 3 storage shelves, and if I had those listed, they would show up here. I can also look at storage controllers in the environment. So my system has currently 2 controllers. I can buy another storage system like what I have and add it to this and expand this out to 4 controllers if I needed to. But currently I only have 2. Here's the first controller, and here's the settings on the first controller. Most importantly is the bond of the 10 gig connection. So this is a 10 gig based system. There are other options. There are 1 gig based systems as well as fiber channel based solutions. Right, but in this case, I have a bond of my two 10 gig adapters, and these are the IPs that are on those adapters. Right. I look at the secondary controller. You can see that it's configured in a similar fashion, and also its ports have a bonded set of IP addresses as well. And if I want to change those, I go up here and edit that. There's a great variety of things you can do, including rebooting the controllers if I needed to. Right. All these IP addresses across both controllers will answer to one IP address, which is a virtual IP address or a VIP. I'll show you that in a little bit. Next, we'll look at storage systems. So this is an overall view into the storage system. All right, so we get some general information here, capacity, as well as down here any licenses that are installed. So I have the advanced data services licenses, and I plan to show you a little bit on adaptive optimization. So to kind of set that up, let's go look at my RAID devices. So I've got 4 RAID sets. Right. And I'll have matching RAID sets across controllers. And I'll explain to you why that is in a little bit. So I have a RAID 5 here. It's considered tier 1 storage. Right. It has 4 drives in it. Right. And this is on spinning disk. So I have one on the first controller and I have one on the second controller as well. And down here I have a couple of RAID 10s, which are on SSD drives, and again I have one on the second controller and then one on the first controller. Basically what the storage system does is take all this available storage after the RAID and makes it available as a pool of storage. And with the advanced data services licenses or adaptive optimization, it has the ability to tier the storage. So basically hot blocks of data will get moved up to the SSD drives and cold blocks of data will move down to the spinning disks in this environment, the regular hard drives. Okay. And that'll happen on an ongoing basis without user interaction, so we can optimize the storage on an ongoing basis. And if I had extra storage to this system and I needed to create an additional RAID, I would do that under this context. So currently, I could survive a single drive failure off of each one of these arrays, and this storage system would stay available if I use network RAID 0. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through these contexts. All right, so again, this is one big pool of storage. We can view that pool of storage under here, under storage pools. We can see the capacity that we have, as well as under the general settings, we could see that virtual IP address. So this is the one IP address that all the IP addresses on the storage controllers can answer to. Right, and we'll tinker around with that a little bit later on. Right. So now we'll go to the top of this list and look under volumes. Let's create a volume. Right, we'll make it kind of small. And then we're going to expand out the advanced options where we've got some default settings. So certainly by default, they like to use thin provisioning. They like to use network RAID 0. So network RAID 0 means I'm going to have striped data across controllers. If you remember, we had multiple RAID sets or matching RAID sets across each controller. Right, if I provision this volume with network RAID 0, I would maintain availability if I lost one drive off each one of those RAID sets. But if there's a 2-drive failure in one of those RAID sets, I would experience data loss because I'm using a RAID 5 and a RAID 1. Right. If I change this to network RAID 10, I could survive multiple drive failures within a RAID set because my data would get duplicated across controllers, across controller RAID sets. Right. So that's one of the reasons why we have duplicate RAID sets matched across controllers if I feel like using it. Right now I'm going to leave it at network RAID 0. I'm also going to turn off adaptive optimization or pinning my data to the spinning disks. Right. And then finally, I'm going to set fully provisioned. And I'm going to scale this back out in a second, but let's create it this way. Right. We can see that we are fully provisioned. Right. We can see that also here. We can see that we're using network RAID 0, so again, I could survive a drive failure off of each one of the RAID sets, and adaptive optimization is not enabled. Over here, we can see that my reported size to a system that might attach to this volume is going to be 10 gigs. And because I'm fully provisioned, the consumed capacity on the backend storage is 10 gigs. So let's go back through and let's edit this volume. Again, we're going to look at advanced options. And this time, I'm going to select network RAID 10. And I'm going to click OK. So this is going to duplicate my data across the storage controllers in this environment. if you look at it again over here, my reported size is 10 gigs to my systems that may attach to this, but my consumed capacity is doubled to 20 gigs because I have matching data across both controllers and matching RAID sets. Right? But again, if I wanted to save that space, I don't want to consume all that space from the get-go, what I could do is go back down to Edit, go under Advanced Options, and we're going to turn on Thinly Provisioned. I'm going to click OK. And then you'll see that our reported size to the system is 10 gigs, but we're only consuming 1 gig, or about a half a gig per controller. All right, so that's a quick overview on that, and we'll play around a little bit with adaptive optimization in a bit. But first, let's export this volume to a system itself. All right, so let's go down. Let's create a server or a system that we can attach our volume to. So if I click Create Server here, we're going to give it a name. We'll call it Our Server. And give it a description. There is application-aware snapshot management on this if you choose to install it. And now I could choose from available initiators or manually configure initiator. So I'm going to connect up a Windows system to this, and I have a Windows system over here that I'm already logged into. So let's go over there and get our initiator name, or our IQN name. There it is. All right, and we'll go over to configuration. So this is pretty standard Microsoft iSCSI information. There's no great magic happening here. So I'm going to grab my initiator name. And an initiator name is like a MAC address or a worldwide name if you're using Fiber Channel. It's a unique identifier that's unique to this system. So I'm going to go over here, manually configure the initiator, and I'm going to paste that in here, and then click Create. Right, now I could certainly go over and export volumes to this, but I want to take this one step further. So we'll say that this is maybe I'm setting up a cluster of Hyper-V servers or a cluster of VMware servers, and I want to export volumes to the cluster itself. So I have the ability to group systems together underneath a server cluster, and I'm going to kind of create a cluster of one, not much of a cluster, but we're going to do that. So we're going to say our cluster. Then we're going to add on one system, or what you probably do is add on multiple systems. For example, a Hyper-V cluster or a VMware cluster. And you create that, and now I can export volumes to this cluster. So we're going to click on Export Volume or Snapshot. We're going to add a volume. We're going to add our Ingram micro volume. We're going to click Add, then Export. So now I have allowed that one system to have export this volume. All right, next, I need to set up my Microsoft initiator to be able to connect to that. So right now, I don't have any targets. I'm going to go under Discovery. Now what I'm going to add is going to be the virtual IP address that we find under the storage pool. And that will be this IP address. And if you remember, this IP address can be answered by the IP addresses on the storage controllers. So these IP addresses here. All right, so again, let's go back over to the storage pool. There's its IP address for the pool, and we're going to add that into our Microsoft initiator. We'll click OK. And now if we look under targets, we can see this one system is available. So I'm going to click Connect. I'm going to enable multipath. I'm going to go under Advanced because I'm using the local Microsoft initiator. I'm going to select that. And next, I'm going to select the IP address. So I have two storage IP ads. So what we're looking at here is the IP version 6 addresses. This is my network or my production network address, or what I'm remoting into here. But these are my two storage addresses. So first, I'm going to select this guy here. And I'm going to select the target portal IP. If you notice, I've got all 4 IP addresses here. So if you remember, let's go back over here and look at storage controllers. We can see these IP addresses down here match what we're seeing here. And if we look at the secondary controller, we'll see the other 2. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to directly attach to the first IP address and click OK. And then OK again. I'm going to select this and do properties. Right now we only have 1 session, but this is going to populate in a little bit. I'm going to add another session. Again, I'm going to enable multipath. Take the default Microsoft iSCSI initiator. This is going to take the other IP address or the other network adapter. And again, I'm going to select an IP address on the storage system. Click OK, and then click OK again. And as you can see, we're already detecting the multiple paths and the multiple IP addresses that exist. I'm going to click OK here. You can see that we're connected. We go back over here and look at our server itself. We'll see that I've got 8 iSCSI sections as well as MPIO is enabled. And as a matter of fact, if I go back in here, look at the properties of this, and you actually see all 8 sessions are connected. All right, and that's kind of standard iSCSI type of technology. It's what I'd expect inside this environment. So I'm going to click OK because we're now connected. All right, and now we're going to go inside disk management. We can see our volume is showing up, so we'll bring this online. We'll initialize it, and then we'll format this out. See this volume is available, so open up Explorer, we'll go to that volume and let's create a little bit of data. And we don't want to lose this information. Okay. And I'm setting ourselves up maybe to show you a little bit of snapshotting. But before we do that, what I want to do is go over to our volume itself, and what we're going to do is we're going to re-edit this volume. I've got a little bit of data on it. Expand advanced options. I'm going to turn on adaptive optimization, and we're going to click OK. What we'll see in a little bit is we'll see some tiers show up. There we go. So we got some tiers, and we can see right now on tier 1 my data exists. In a little bit we're going to see some of this data migrate up to tier 0, which is our SSD drives. So again, this is adaptive optimization. It'll tear out our data, and we'll see a little bit of that happen. If you pay attention over here, you'll see that number go up a little bit. All right. So with that being said, let's go over and play with a little bit of snapshots. So certainly I could take snapshots through this context here. I can also take snapshots under this menu item. I could certainly create a schedule if I wanted to. Choose when I wanted it to start. When I wanted it to recur every day. Got a variety of options here that I could choose. Then how many snaps I want to keep. So I'm going to cancel out of this, and I'm going to take an ad hoc snapshot. So we'll go over here, we'll click Create Snapshot. And now we have a snapshot available. Notice down here it shows up under snapshots. I can click on that. It'll bring me into the snapshot context. Again, if we look over here, we'll see that under the main menu, we'll see we're under snapshots. All right. So let's go over to the volume itself and let's destroy our data. As a matter of fact, we'll empty out the recycle bin as well. All right, and we'll say that we need to get access to that data. So what I can do is go over here, export this to a system, and we're going to select the cluster, because that's what I set up as a cluster of one. We'll select that. We'll click export. Now that it's exported, I can go over to the system, do a rescan disk. So if we scroll down, you can see this other drive that's offline. They can bring it back online. It's now got a drive letter E. We'll go back out and explore drive letter E, and we can see that we can get our data back. All right, so that's one way. See another way. So let's go over to volumes. Now what I'm going to want to do is click export server. Notice I can't unexport from this context, but if I go back over to the server cluster itself and then select export volumes, you can see that I can unexport. So I'm going to hit the X on the snapshot and click export, and now that volume should go away. So again, we'll do another rescan disk and drive E should go away. Alright, so we can see that drive E has went away. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a rollback of the volume. But before I do that, what I want to do is take this volume offline, devolume offline, because I don't want anybody to accidentally write data to it. So we'll click offline. Notice it went away. And then over here under actions, we'll click roll back this volume, giving you a warning that you're going to lose any data on this volume as it exists if there were any changes made it since the snapshot. Select my snapshot here, and then I'm going to click yes, roll back. I'm sure I get a notice that it was successful, and it drops us back to the context. And then we'll go over here, we'll bring our volume back online. And then again, if we look inside that volume, you can see that I've got our data back. So there are two different ways to use snapshots. Another way to be able to use snapshots is to create smart clones. And smart clones are volumes that have shared capacity. So the basic idea behind that is I might want to set up a volume and have all its pre-configured data on it and say I want to share it to 5 different systems. I have a quick mechanism to be able to do that without duplicating the data 5 times. So let's explore that real quick. So I'll go over here, we'll go down to snapshots. So I have this one snapshot listed here. And what I'll do is I'm going to click create smart clone. All right, there's its name, and we're going to create 5 of these guys. And I'm going to click create. And then again, under activity, we can see all 5 of those created. And they're not snapshots, right? But if we go back to volumes, we'll see that they've all been created. And the interesting piece on this, if I select one of these volumes, you'll see that it has shared capacity. Right? And this shared capacity or information is shared across all of these. And what will happen is as information changes on each one of these volumes, they'll go into consumed capacity. So it's an easy way to kind of effectively use storage, especially if you have lake data inside the environment. Okay, so that's our quick tour of the StoreVirtual 3200 Management Console. I hope you found this video informative, and please stay tuned for more videos.